Happy faith.
7:01.
Yep. All right. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all join me. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Next data.
For a second?
Second.
Laurel Steinhauser. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Are we going to make an amendment to the
Oh, right.
agenda?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Is it too late? Can we back
I
up?
think we could do that under,
I think if somebody votes, who voted yes, can recall the motion or something.
Sure. How does
We
that?
make a motion to recall the,
or we could just do this under Charles' report.
We can,
Yeah, we can put it under your report rather than change the agenda at this point.
okay.
Makes it easier.
Would you be able to vote on it under my report?
Yep,
I think so.
yep, because Sharon can ask for the motion to be made. We can
well,
do that.
it doesn't say possible action under communication and updates.
Okay, is
We
there a
don't
motion,
usually
is
do
there a
that.
motion to rescind the approval of the agenda?
I move,
Lauren Christensen, is there a second?
I second that.
Tim seconds. Okay, going in reverse. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as
It
amended.
hasn't been amended yet, so I think we have
Yeah,
to
that we-
move
Oh,
and
shit.
then,
All
Yeah, so
right.
if somebody makes the motion, then we. can-
okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Tim,
I'll
is
second
there
the
something you'd
motion.
like to address on the agenda?
Yes, I would like,
Yeah.
while we are considering the agenda, that we make I want to make a motion to amend the agenda. Now, we read this whole thing in here, or just to?
No.
No,
No, just, we want to add in. Holy moly. We want to add in
You're gonna want to add,
an element for the, make a change to the FY 2022 final budget that goes through June 1st, effective June 1st, 2021.
yeah, but what,
It's actually
I'm
July
gonna
1st,
correct
isn't
you
it?
here for just a second. The wording should be that you want to amend the agenda to add an item under new business to amend the budget, the 2020, 21, 22 budget.
Yes,
Okay,
Okay.
and we're going to add it in under item new business B, basically. Right?
yes, that's my motion.
Okay, so we're adding an item to the agenda, and it's going to be under 8, and it's going to be 8B, and it's going to be a motion to change to, all right, we'll get the word.
Yes. Okay. With that
We're gonna fu-
So
amendment,
that's the,
Yeah, we're
yeah.
going to
Is
fund
there-
the second grade position, right, I'll give Nancy the word, all right, we're good.
okay.
Yep.
Is there a motion to, what do we have to do?
So
Accept
Approve the
amendment?
agenda.
motion,
as
I'll
amended.
second that motion. Meg Scow seconds Tim's amending motion.
Okay, all in favor of
Aye.
approving the agenda as amended in case anybody else is confused? Okay, it passed unanimously. Okay. We're not redoing the pledge. We did the agenda. Approval of consent agenda.
I just, want
Is
to-
there, we got it.
I want to point out one thing, that down in member comments, it says that I mentioned equity in the hiring process.
Mhm.
That actually was Laurel. So this is
Okay, so that
Yeah.
should be L
Steinhauser.
Steinhauser instead of L Christensen in that
Correct.
first line.
May I add something as well here, Sharon?
Sure.
That the minutes from last month are missing under the approval of consent agenda. They're missing the modifications that we made to the May 4th minutes, trying to correct the confusion between Lauren's votes and my votes.
When we amend the minutes, they're just amended and there's no note.
There's no mention in here that those changes were made.
No, because it's already,
Okay.
it's amended at that point.
All right, my
So we don't
bad.
have to do that, yeah. we don't
Okay.
have to do that.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and the minutes from our last meeting as amended.
I so move.
Tim,
Second.
L. Christensen, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Student representative reports. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped the audience of citizens. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board?
Oh, let's see how this works.
No. We're good?
Okay.
Good, yeah, everybody who's here is up on the screen, so it's just us and
Oh, okay. So
that's it.
our audience of citizens is our student representatives. Who would like to go first?
I'll start tonight.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Glad to see that you're all in person. It must be nice.
Can't hear me.
Okay, hang on just 1 minute. We're going to up the volume a little bit. We're having trouble hearing you.
Okay. Is this any better?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Worse.
Went the wrong way. You're turning us up. Check, check. Sean, say something.
Is this better?
Maybe it's on the television.
Yeah, it's on the television. If we can maybe just turn the volume
Oh, I
on.
bet you,
Yep.
yeah.
Technology. So
Give us the
fun.
scale.
Okay, we good?
Go ahead, Sean. We'll just be really quiet. We just have to listen to you carefully.
All right. Well, hi everyone. It's good to see that you're all meeting in person tonight. As the school year is winding down and with restrictions lifting, we're able to do a lot more at school, which has been really nice. We're approved to host a field day at the end of the year, and we also have our prom coming up on Sunday, and the senior trip is happening on Friday, so that's really great. And then the academic awards ceremony was also held last week, and that was in person as well. It was a wonderful night, and many students were recognized for their academic achievements, and it was a great night, honestly.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right, I can take over now. Good evening, everybody. Like Sean said,
Hi.
it's really nice to see you all in person. Sign of getting back to as we were last year, which is always good. For my update, like Sean said, I know many of you were in attendance at the academic awards, and driving into the school tonight, you may have seen the American flags up around the circle in front of the high school. That was done by Student Senate last week on Wednesday to honor the fallen veterans of Portland. It's something that the Senate does every year, and it means a lot to the veterans in our community and to the PHS community as well to have that display out in front. So it was nice to be able to do that again, as I believe Senate missed it last year because of the pandemic. So that was another return to normalcy. For sports wise, a lot of our spring sports have headed to the Shoreline and state conferences recently as the year winds down. The track team has their state competition this Thursday and had the Shorelines competition last Wednesday. We had quite a few all Shoreline athletes in various events. I know that golf, I believe, recently won their Shoreline championships on golf team. So that was really great to hear. And tennis as well has sent both boys and girls has sent many athletes to Shorelines and even a few to states. So sports are reaching the end of our seasons on a high note as well, which is always great to hear. And then finally, as we reach the end of the year and I get closer to graduation, I just have a short message that I'd love to share with you all after 2 years of being on the board. So it really has been a terrific opportunity to be a part of the Board of Education for the past 2 years. And although I am sad to go, I know that my time at PHS and my experiences as a student rep to the board have prepared me for great things in the future. I want to thank you all for showing me how much hard work and care goes into our education system on every level. And also, I've got my fingers crossed that next year things will be a little bit smoother. But it really was amazing. And I admire Dr. Britton and I admire all of the members of the board for their responsibility and their flexibility, especially during this time of uncertainty. I know that Sean will continue to represent PHS well next year, the student body. And I just thought I'd share with you all that I'll be attending Colgate University in the fall in New York. and already graduating next Wednesday. So it snuck up on me. But I just wanted to say a final thank you for this opportunity and for sharing this this experience with me.
Thank you. We enjoyed having you as a student rep, and best of luck
Thank you.
at Colgate.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And both of you, congratulations. You
Yeah.
guys cleaned up at senior award.
Thank you.
Communication and updates.
Where's the prom being held? Oh,
Oh,
Wa-
that's okay.
wa-
Oh,
Wadsworth.
yes. Yeah, at the Wadsworth Mansion.
Wadsworth, huh?
Okay.
All right.
Superintendent's report.
All right, hey, as we get started, so Dylan, are we able to see the administrators and everybody else who's on join on that TV? Oh.
Once they're ready to have their cameras on, we can go.
Oh, okay. So so you can see that you know they're on. We can only see us and the students. Okay. So at some point when we get to audience of citizens, if somebody wanted to address us. Okay, we're just getting used to the setup here. I couldn't quite figure it out. All right. So let me go over to the podium. We have some important people to recognize. You're on this, right? So I have some really important people who I am very excited to spend a few minutes introducing to you and hoping you'll join me in recognizing them and congratulating them and extending our appreciation for many years of service to our schools. So this year we have 4 retirees. 2 are unable to join us in person. That's why I want to ask Dylan, is Jean Charbonneau and Dave Steiner, are they on the Zoom? Can you tell if they're there? Because I know they were going to Zoom in tonight, and if so, I'd love to be able to see them on this TV so that we can put a face to a name.
Yeah.
It's Jean Charbonneau. So you don't see either one of them, huh? Oh, okay. Well, look, I'll tell you what, why don't I start then with our 2 teachers, and if Jean and Dave show up, great, we'll give them a few more minutes. If they don't show up, I'll say some flattering things about them, and this will be recorded so they can see it at some point. All righty. So first, if I could ask Diane Stolting to come on up here, I'd love to embarrass you and have you stand up here. So here's what I did. Okay, is I kind of got ready to introduce you to Jean. I went and I took a deep dive into Diane's personnel file. There it is. So I've done this in years past, and I've always found that, you know, some people, when they get their personnel files, haven't looked at their transcripts or personal statements or CVs since they applied for this job 20 years ago. So you might find an interesting trip down memory lane in there. So I took a look for you. I spent some time over the weekend. I brought it home and I looked through every single thing in there. And I got to tell you, I hope when I retire, my personnel file is as spectacular as yours. So Diane was recommended by Portland Middle School Principal Margaret Downey to Superintendent of Schools Joseph Castagnola for a grade 7 science teaching position on August 17th, 1998. On the interview committee, you may recognize these names, was Deborah Salamites, Shirley Colombe, Bob McCain, and Margaret Downey. And you impressed them. When they wrote their recommendation to the superintendent, they had some pretty remarkable things to say about you. So prior to applying to Portland, Ms. Stolting earned her bachelor's in biology at the University of Connecticut and her master's degree in biology at Southern Connecticut State University. She had spent several years substitute teaching and working as a research assistant at the University of Connecticut. While at the University of Connecticut, bear with me, she had 2 publications to her name. The first one was titled, kid you not, Direct Observation in Vitro of How Neuroblasts Migrate. And the second one, Migration of neuroblasts in pericardial translocation. I know it's English. I have no idea what it is. Okay, I think I might have got the in vitro part, but beyond that, you lost me completely.
Tissue culture.
Tissue. Remarkable. Right. So Ms. Stolzing also included in her personal philosophy statement in her application. I read through it. And in it, she wrote, quote, "A child needs to experience learning, not just hear or read about it. I believe learning is a fluid process by which an individual applies what he or she learns in all areas and phases of life." We would call that real world application, right? Yeah, of course. I see it regularly when I'm visiting your classes. So in the years that followed her appointment in 1999, Ms. Stolzing accumulated a series of remarkably positive performance reviews and letters of commendation from several administrators. Her file reflects a strong work ethic, commitment to creating a hands-on learning environment, and the ability to create a warm and inviting classroom culture. Now, if I do my math right, 23 years, 5 classes a year, 20 students in each class on average, means that over your time here, you have educated 2,300 Portland students. So they are very lucky to have you, and so are we. Thank you for all of that. So I met with Diane today and asked her to reflect with me on her career here. And she told me, and I'm quoting, "Teaching is a calling. It's something I knew I was destined to do the very first day I stepped into a classroom as a substitute teacher," which is really saying something. "It takes someone who is mentally and emotionally present for his or her students. It is all about the children." So on behalf of the Portland Public Schools, congratulations on a healthy, long, and restful retirement. Yeah. Would you like to say a few words? I'd love to have you. If you want to come back here.
Yeah, there's more. I didn't know I was coming here in person until today at noon. Anyway, I don't know if the mic can see me at this point. I just wanted to have the opportunity to come and say thank you to you and to you for the opportunity through all the twists and turns of education and life. It has been a joy. Not every minute of every day, but there's always some ups and downs, but it's been a joy to get to know the children, the students, the families of Portland. I started working in Portland. It was my first actual under contract teaching job, and I never left. I just really liked the town, and I really have enjoyed my time in my reign here. And I just hope that since the families and the students have made an indelible mark on my life and my heart, I hope that there are at least a few children out there that I've made a difference in their lives over the years. Wow. Oh, thank you so much. I think I'll go out this way. Oh.
Alex, come on up. There you go. I hope you enjoy your trip down memory lane. But I tell you what, I looked at your transcripts in there. Holy mackerel, you didn't do much partying, did you?
No.
You hit the books pretty well.
At times.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I wish I had these grades. That was impressive. So Alex Jensen was offered employment with the Portland Public Schools as a grade 7 math teacher by Superintendent Joseph Castignola on April 10th, 2002. The recommendation was passed on to the Board of Education and the superintendent by Principal Thomas Danahy. Prior to becoming a math teacher at Portland Middle School, Mr. Jensen spent 24 years working for the United Parcel Service. He was an account executive, a business manager, quality control manager, supervisor, and trainer. Yeah, you moved right up, didn't you? Right? So, boy, you moved right up. While working for UPS, you earned your Bachelor of Science in Finance from the University of Connecticut in 1981 and your Master's of Business Administration in 1989. So, and again, I took a look at your transcripts. Unbelievable. Straight A's, I think.
Not exactly, but thank you for.
Unbelievable, right?
I've always thought school.
Yeah, clear. That's great. So in his letter of introduction in 2001, Mr. Jensen wrote that he is the proud father of 3 Portland Middle School students and or graduates, Sarah, Tom, and Rose. And that his approach to teaching mathematics focuses on enhancing students' self-esteem, which he believes breeds success. I thought that was a very interesting thing to put in your statement there. And certainly I've seen you do that every day in your classroom, especially in that conferencing you do with students individually. There's much focused on helping the kids learn math, but it is about perseverance and grit and all the things we want to get them to develop. And you were saying that from day one.
I still do.
Yeah, I know. So observations of Mr. Jensen consistently reflect a remarkable work ethic. Several letters of commendation note that Mr. Jensen is one of those teachers who is the first to arrive each morning and the last to leave. He is consistently and constantly refining his lesson plans and ensuring that every student receives feedback that he or she needs to improve. Is the heart of differentiation. If I do my math, 20 years in the Portland Public Schools, 5 classes per year, an average of 20 students per class, means that you have educated over 2,000 students during your career here. So thank you very much for that.
Well,
That's remarkable.
I was wondering if I was doing the math too. But I had a few more years than I did. She had 23 minutes. I'm gonna make you that.
I gotcha. So this afternoon, I spoke with Mr. Jensen and asked him to reflect on his career in Portland. He told me that he had many thoughts that came to mind, but in his eyes, teaching has given him the opportunity to be young again. He has enjoyed every moment and is thankful for being a part of Portland all these years. So on behalf of the Portland Public Schools, I can't thank you enough for all that you've done here.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I will enjoy it.
Yeah, well, welcome. What would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I don't want to say a lot. I want to thank all of you for all the effort. I just, what comes to mind is COVID, and I don't want to explore COVID. It's exhausting. However, what you all did and how much time you had to devote to it, and yourself, of course, included. And I initially, when we came back, personally, I thought, oh, here we go. I'm going to get this stuff. But it didn't happen. And it didn't happen because the mitigation was really good. It was the best it could have been with what you had to work with. And I'm very thankful for that. And I wasn't overly worried about it, but it was a concern, and I thought it was handled very well. I'm just looking at Justin on the TV there, and I know he's been with you for a couple of years. And one of the highlights of my career was the 8th grade math teacher, unfortunately, was sick that year. But there's a celebration of scholars. Justin was one of those scholars way back when in 8th grade. And he happened to invite this math teacher to his celebration. And that was certainly a highlight for me. But I was also telling you today, Charles, that we just had a field day in the middle school, which may seem like a small thing, but a well done field day, which this one was. It probably was the most successful that I've ever experienced. And the reason was very good planning on the part of Charles Hirschon and the people that were part of it. It just, the kids truly got into it, enjoyed it, and I could feel it. And what I felt was, I'm standing talking to Miss Bell, who's organizing the badminton, and one of my students walks up, "Would you like to play, Mr. Jensen?" And she meant it. And of course I did. I felt like playing. I felt like a kid again. And so we played badminton, and there was another teacher along with me. And so then we move on to kickball, and we're both playing kickball. And I just felt the warmth, and those are the best days. And it doesn't have to be just a class where everything comes together. It can feel like that too. And I'm very thankful for that. And I thank you for this recognition. And I'm looking forward to being retired. Thank you.
Did we find Gene or Dave? Did they show up?
I don't see Dave, and it sounds like Dave was not able to.
Oh, no, that's too bad. Well, I tell you what, I'm just gonna read a little bit about them. I know this is recorded. And that it'll be on the website, and I will let them know that they should watch it. And otherwise, maybe they're camera shy, which I get, I understand. So Jean Charbonneau. So Miss Charbonneau applied for employment with the Portland Public Schools in October of 1999. She was hired by Superintendent Joseph Castagnola as a paraprofessional. Oh, it's your phone. She was hired by Superintendent Joseph Castagnola as a paraprofessional at Valley View Elementary School on June 8, 2000. Prior to applying to Portland, Ms. Charbonneau spent 12 years as an administrative assistant at the Aetna Life Insurance Company. Really interesting here. Ms. Charbonneau graduated Portland High School in 1979. Interestingly enough, her mother also went through K through 12 the Portland Public Schools, and her children went through Portland Public Schools. So 3 generations in her family have been educated in the Portland Public Schools. I thought that was remarkable. And I mean, you must prick her finger and she must bleed Portland. I can only imagine after having roots that deep here with the 3 generations of her family going through our schools and her staying and her still loving it here is pretty much all you need to say about this town. So it's fair to say that Jean is Portland through and through. Ms. Charbonneau worked as a paraprofessional from 2000 to 2006. In 2006, Ms. Charbonneau expressed an interest in becoming a secretary at the Brownstone Intermediate School and was hired for the position. Ms. Charbonneau's personnel file is rich with positive evaluations and commendations from administrators and colleagues. This morning, I spoke with Ms. Charbonneau and asked her to reflect on her 21 years in the Portland Public Schools. She told me, quote, "It has been a real honor to work for a system that she and her children went through. It has been fun. She has come across wonderful people and it feels like a family for her." I know Ms. Charbonneau is looking forward to spending more time with her family and her second home in the Berkshires, and I wish her a very long, healthy, and happy retirement. I wish she could be here with us tonight. Jean, if you're watching this before tomorrow morning, I'm coming to find you and I have your personal file and card and some file support. And finally, we have Dave Steiner. So Dave didn't show up. Oh, that's too bad. I hope he didn't have trouble. I gave him a little coaching in Zoom today. Maybe it didn't work. So, okay. So Mr. Steiner applied for employment with the Portland Public Schools in September of 1999. Prior to applying with the Portland Public Schools, Mr. Steiner worked as an electrician for the Hartford Fire Equipment Company, Steiner Electric, Mira Lighting Services, and the Fastener Electric Company. In 2000, Mr. Steiner began his employment as an electrician for the Portland Public Schools. As I reviewed Mr. Steiner's personnel file, there have been some highs and lows here in Portland. He would probably laugh when you hear me say that. On several occasions, Mr. Steiner received unsolicited praise from his colleagues who commented on his commitment to creating a safe and comfortable environment in the schools. This morning, I spoke with Dave and asked him to reflect on his 21 years in Portland. Dave told me that he will always cherish the friendships and relationships that he developed here in Portland, and he went out of his way to comment how nice people have been to him over the years and how kind this place has been. He told me that he spent a lot of time this weekend writing thank you and goodbye letters to many people. He's going to miss his colleagues and his friends, but isn't going anywhere. He said he would be in touch. So on behalf of the Portland Public Schools, I would like to thank Dave for his service. And I'll make sure that he gets the person. All right, I'll come back over here for the less important stuff. Yeah, unless you want to hear about religious exemptions for vaccinations. And all that.
Thank
You're welcome.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Congratulations.
Guys, hold on. I forgot one thing. We are going to have a barbecue in honor of the retirees on June 14th. And certainly the board of that, you're invited. If you'd like to come up and have a hamburger and play some kickball with us, you're welcome to. But the date for our barbecue is going to be June 14th with a rain date of the 15th. And we're going to do it in honor of these folks. So,
On the calendar.
all right. Bye, everyone. All righty. So I just have a couple of other, I think pretty short ones. One I included in your folder tonight, and I think I included it in the packet I handed to you. I received a frequently asked questions, I guess is the only way I could describe it, from the Connecticut State Department of Education with guidance about how we implement Public Act 21-6, an act concerning immunizations. This is the one that no longer allows us to accept religious exemptions that are dated after April 28th. So I met with Dave and our registrars this morning. We don't have anyone that has submitted any religious exemptions after April 28th. We have several that came in before April 28th. So that's good. We're kind of in a place where we can start fresh. I also included here, I thought you might be interested in seeing all of the vaccinations that are required. So I did we are going to include this information and this FAQ in our registration packets and information so families are aware of the requirements for vaccination, and then all of these ones that are part of the schedule of vaccinations that children have to receive. I'm just bringing this to your attention. We're still waiting for policy guidance from CABE. I haven't seen that yet, Meg. Have you?
I actually have some documentation which I'll share with you, because there are some implications to policy changes.
Okay.
And it's still an unsettled, they're still trying to figure out the legal ramifications.
Right.
But we'll work on it. Our policy committee will work on it.
Good. So I just wanted to share that with you to make sure we kind of stay ahead of it. All right. The second thing, I did receive a communication today, a statement from the Social Justice Coalition here in town. They shared feedback and comments on the sign that was put out in front of Brownstone a week ago Sunday. I certainly appreciated their feedback, and they're asking us to look into potentially forming a relationship with the Anti-Defamation League, specifically the Nazi swastika and the references to Hitler and Nazism were in very poor taste, and it's hate speech, and that's really what it boils down to. And I will just say this: my inbox on Monday morning after that happened, I can't even tell you. I haven't even been able to get through all of the email of people reaching out and saying how sorry they were and how offended they were by our depiction and what happened. I've done my best to keep up and express appreciation to them, but I do think that this reflects that we did the right thing this year, establishing a goal around civil discourse. And I think we should continue that next year. I think that civil discourse and our work in promoting equity and calling out hate speech when we see it is important. And I think that the statement from the Social Justice Coalition, I thought is well put, and certainly I think the Anti-Defamation League is outstanding. All of the programs I've ever been involved with that group are terrific, and it's certainly a relationship worth exploring, but would see if anybody has any feedback or reaction to either the letter or the idea of forming a relationship with the ADL. That's great.
No, at this time, but I think it's worth investigating and part of the equity and social justice initiative that we are working on at the school with Eric and his task force.
Great. And Eric's going to share a little bit more information with you tonight about some of that work that's happening.
I think it's a terrific suggestion. I'm glad that I appreciate the letter from the Portland Social Justice Coalition, and I appreciate that suggestion as well, and would love to see us explore that as an option next year.
Great. Terrific.
I would agree. It's important. that all forms of hate speech and racism and um, those types of discourse are called out for what they are and not not tolerated. As I indicated in the statement I put out on behalf of the board, we're here twice a month, most months, always open to comments and suggestions and feedback from the community. That's our job. It's a big part of our job. And those views had never been brought up, thankfully, at any one of our meetings, I'm happy to say. But, you know, we don't anticipate or expect or think that everyone is ever going to always agree with us. And we're open to appropriate civil discourse. And we'd welcome it. You know, anyone who doesn't agree with our policies or plans, they're free to come and express their views twice a month, as I said, almost every month. So I think it would be a good idea to include information available from the Anti-Defamation League in the work that we do about social justice and inclusion and that type of stuff. So I would support that as well.
Yeah, no, definitely the ADL's got a good track record with that kind of thing. I mean, that whole thing just came out of left field. I mean, that's not even really civil discourse, is it? I mean, that's vandalism, and you know, it's not participating in a productive way. I was going to suggest, as you were talking too, I'm sure you know, but the Southern Poverty Law Center, which does the teaching tolerance curriculum, you know, publishes, they do all kinds of resources. They track a number of white supremacist groups and nationalist groups and all kinds of terrible, you know, people, many of which have headquarters or have activity in Connecticut. In fact, well, I don't want to throw any of our neighbors under the bus, but there's a couple of local towns that have had quite a history with that. So, you know, if something like that were to happen again, I know there's a police investigation active right now, but I think that the Southern Poverty Law Center is a really good resource for that. And that teaching tolerance is a whole broad curriculum that can be incorporated at all levels in schools to sort of help us to make this be something we can move forward and have something positive come out of that action.
Yep, it's a great idea.
Just an FYI, they changed their name to Teaching for Injustice. The Teaching Tolerance name went away, but it's the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just updated.
Like in the last.
Yeah, like in the last 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they just decided they needed a new name.
What are they called now?
They're called Teaching for Injustice, and they asked everybody to re-sign up on their email if you get their newsletters or whatever. So,
well, if you think about it, I think that we have moved past the point in our society where we can tolerate any of this stuff. We shouldn't be tolerating it in any way, shape, or form. It's just not acceptable. So.
All right. Well, I have one more communication and update for you. So I met with Kate Lawson last week, and we got Russ Melmed on the phone to talk about graduation. And graduation, as you know, is Wednesday, June 16th. So here's what Russ has guided us, and Kate and I are going to record a podcast tomorrow and start communicating this out to parents. For graduation, we're proceeding with the following plans for graduation. One, for all of our students who are graduating and our students who are participating in the graduation, be it in the band or kind of, you know, escorting students around or helping, those students are going to be in masks. Right? We're going to implement the mask mitigation strategy and keep that in place. However, for the guests, we are planning an outdoor graduation with the idea that it is for vaccinated people, right? So if we plan an outdoor graduation for vaccinated people, it means that we're not going to limit attendance. We're not going to social distance our chairs. We're not going to require masks. We're going to proceed under the CDC guidelines for outdoor events, which means as many people can come and cheer and yell and not wear masks and be there. What's important for everybody to know in that is that if you are unvaccinated, we're going to clearly communicate that we're not, as a school, going to do anything to keep you safe, to implement mitigation strategies. And that therefore, if you're unvaccinated, wear a mask, maintain your social distance yourself. If you need a face shield, there's an element of personal responsibility in that if you're unvaccinated, and or we're going to live stream the event so it can be viewed offsite. And I think that will allow us to not have to limit the number of guests, and will feel more like a normal graduation, with the exception that our graduates and students in the graduation will be in masks. There will be times when they can take them off for the pictures and other things, but that's how Kate and I are thinking about graduation, and that it does have the support of Russ Melman. He has said that matches the state guidelines, and it is a way that we have his blessing to proceed. If it's raining, we're going to go indoors. Same situation though. The only difference between outdoor and indoor is that we will ask guests indoor to wear a mask, but we're going to pack the auditorium. Right? Every student's going to get 4 tickets for their guests. That's normal. You know, that is where the capacity of the auditorium maxes out, is at 4 guests per graduate. We will have sites open throughout the building, so if people want to watch the ceremony from a classroom and then be there to greet the graduates when they come out. But in general, the message to the community is going to be, we're moving forward as if everybody that's attending the graduation is going to be vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated and aren't going to be fully vaccinated by the time graduation rolls around, be wise about how you attend and participate in that ceremony. So I would take any feedback on that.
Yes,
I think that sounds good.
I guess I'm curious about students who are graduating who could very well be vaccinated. They still need to be masked.
Yes, we're going to have our students be masked. And there are going to be parts of the ceremony where they can take the mask down for pictures, and then once it's over, off into life they go. And if they're vaccinated,
You planning to do it in the same place as always?
Yep. In that side parking lot right in front of the middle school there. I sort of see graduation as going to be, I hope, an interesting pivot back to, you know, a time when we're sort of more pre-pandemic. So all mitigation strategies are in place right up until that event, and then I see that event as kind of the move into a new way of thinking about, how we keep each other safe.
Makes sense.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Will board members be invited?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yep. Kate and I are going to record the podcast. I know she's got her committee and working on the invitations, and
Great.
Kate is amazing with all that, I will say.
Mark your calendar.
Mark your calendar. Yep.
I just wanted the person to have it already marked.
Now there's no rain date, so it's gonna happen on the 16th, whether if it's inside or outside, it's gonna be just that day.
Rain or shine.
All right, perfect.
That's all I have.
Great. All right, Director of Curriculum, Instruction and Technology.
He's Rep Hill here. Recognize the office.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here tonight. I've got a short report for you. I'm going to start off just talking quickly about our last 2-hour professional development delay, which was last Wednesday. The majority of our teachers continued work on department-specific goals that they've been working on all year that align to our district and Board of Education goals. And then we tasked them with the additional work of creating what we've termed curriculum coverage reports. So in light of the pandemic and anticipated disruptions to learning, at the beginning of this school year, we made a strategic decision to tell teachers to prioritize what we called 2/3 coverage of their curriculum, or to look within their curriculum and prioritize the 2/3 skills and content that would be most vital for student success this year and beyond. And so given that mandate to our teachers, which they were appreciative of, and I think as the year played out, ended up being a good bit of foresight on our part, we had our teachers work to create curriculum coverage reports in which they basically outlined the missing 1/3 of the curriculum that they might not have gotten to. In most cases, our teachers were still able to exceed 2/3 curriculum, but not get to what they might typically fully get to in a normal year. And so they were indicating on these reports, what did they cover to a more limited extent than they would typically cover? What were they unable to cover at all? Given some of the disruptions, what would be the skills that their current students might need additional work with next year? And then for receiving teachers of those students next year, what would they recommend as a skill-based starting point? Those reports ultimately will be made available to the teachers next year that are receiving the students from the teacher or teachers that completed those reports. And those teachers will be able to use those coverage reports right from the onset of the school year. And in the onset, I mean the days leading up to when our students arrive, to begin planning the first 2 to 3 weeks of instruction to meet students where they are based on where they're coming out this year. And we know that for our students, it doesn't, teachers aren't just going to pick up next year with their typical Unit 1 starting point. We've asked them to think about what we're calling a pre-Unit 1 unit. And so these coverage reports will be extremely helpful in informing their design of the opening weeks of the school year. And our teachers were very receptive to that opportunity to complete those reports, and also to the idea that they'll be receiving those reports from their sending teachers. I'm next going to just go through some quick testing updates. So at this point, we have nearly completed all Smarter Balanced and Next Generation Science testing. Smarter Balanced, as a reminder, is a state standardized measure of literacy and mathematics. It's taken by all students in grades 3 through 8 annually each spring. And NGSS, or the Next Generation State Science Assessment, is administered each spring to students in grades 5, 8, and 11. In a normal year, we have a key accountability measure by the state in which we're required to have 95% of students participate in these tests. Those accountability measures were waived this year in light of the pandemic and some of the ongoing disruptions to learning or the learning model. Nonetheless, we exceeded that 95% accountability threshold in every single tested grade. As a district, we've had 98% of our students participate in Smarter Balanced Assessment, and 97% of students complete all of their tests to date. And the testing window remains open until Friday of this week. It closes on Friday. So we're in the process right now of getting any kids that still have tests to complete those tests. But those are tremendous percentages. Even in a year where accountability did exist, we'd be proud of those percentages, and we're especially proud of them this year. And that also includes large swaths of the majority of our PBLA students who were able to remotely test for these assessments while at home. For the Next Generation Science Standards test, we've had 97% of students in the district participate in these tests. And that's the accountability metric, is the participation, even though it doesn't count this year, which basically means that students log on and begin the test. And of that group of students, 93% of our students in grades 5, 8, and 11 have completed the Next Generation Science Standards test, which also closes on Friday. And so we've got a couple more kids that are continuing to test. Again, percentages were exceptionally proud.
Eric, can I interrupt you for a quick second?
Sure.
I just want to say something while the whole board is here, and that's one of the challenges with the testing this year is that we had to do it remotely for many of our students, right? We had a whole new system to learn about how to administer this remotely. And Eric, as the PVLA principal, did a remarkable job. And those numbers of 95% and higher are a direct reflection of his work and the work of the PVLA teachers to figure out how to do this and get our students in the PVLA to do it. So I just wanted to, I know when Eric says we're proud of those numbers, I want to make sure we know who we're proud of for getting those numbers. And those individuals are Eric and the teachers in the PVLA. So thank you for both learning that new technology, making sure our students were able to access it, and then proctoring those tests to such high degrees of success. Well, I mean, in terms of participation.
Thank you. And also to our building principals who really did a lot of work for shuffling staff and making sure that everyone had the requisite training and was able to proctor these tests accordingly. It really was a large group effort. Our 11th grade students recently took the school day SAT, which is the state standardized assessment for 11th graders. It replaced Smarter Balanced at 11th grade a few years back. We had 88 test takers this year. And I know that we talk a lot about, fears of learning loss or learning decline, which personally I feel and statistically are showing to be a little bit overblown. Not because it wasn't a very real possibility, but I think more so to the resilience of our students and the dedication of our teachers. And so just a really quick snapshot of how our students performed on the school day SAT. And there will be a much more detailed data presentation I'll make to the board on this over the summer. But as we've just gotten our results back recently, a quick snapshot. So in Portland, we had 88 test takers. They took the school day SAT, which is scored out of 1,600. Still comprised of two sections, as we probably all knew it when we took the test. We knew it as math and verbal. It's now math and evidence-based reading and writing has replaced what we formerly knew as verbal. They've done away with some of the questions, including some of those terrible analogy questions. But our Portland students on average scored a 1070 on the school day SAT. And as a point of comparison, the state average was a 1004. So we exceeded the state average. And to go back to our most recent administration of this test in Portland, it's not cohort, it was our 11th graders in 2019. Last year, there was no school day SAT. Again, this year, we averaged 1070 as a student score for the test. In 2019, that average score was 1037. So we have improved since our last administration, despite the pandemic. And again, due in large part to the resilience of our students and the just the incredible commitment of our teachers. That's Kate Lawson texting me how proud she is of those numbers, by the way, if you hear my phone ding. And then just really quickly, as breaks down a little bit more good news along lines of evidence-based reading and writing, our students averaged a score of 546. That was versus an average of 509 across the state of Connecticut. And to compare to our 11th graders in 2019 of 546 versus an average then of 521. So up in evidence-based reading and writing. And then as we go to math, our Portland juniors this year averaged a score of 524. That was in comparison to a score of 495 at the state level and against a comparative score of 516 in 2019 for our 11th graders. So again, through a pandemic and against state comparisons, we've excelled relative to obviously what's been an exceptionally challenging year. Our students have at this point, by and large, completed their advanced placement or AP exams at the high school. Michelle Iannello and Karen Risley have been doing incredible work to make sure that all kids take their assessments and do their absolute best. And now we're down to just a handful of makeups for those assessments as well. And so our students, we've experienced widespread success on AP exams in years past, and we expect to this year as well. A quick update on our summer learning programs. So we're offering effectively 5 different programs in the district. One is our extended school year program, which services in-person special education students whose IEP plans demand that they receive year-round supports and services. I'm not going to speak to that program. That's Dawn Davis's baby and the hard work of our special education staff. But on the regular education side, we have 4 offerings. So for all students entering grades K through 12, we have our online enrichment program. I'm thrilled to have Corey Toussaint and Alicia Millard, 2 exceptional educators in our district, serving as the coordinators of that program. We've hired 14 teachers into that program, and the model is, it's a split model. For students entering grades K through 6, these students have themed weeks with academic tasks relative to the themes of each week. So you might have a week that's called Beach Week, and students have to do a math activity that's themed to the beach or read a short story where characters go to a beach, and then they have some fun activities to do around those structured academic tasks. In addition, we have Julie French, one of our elementary art teachers, is offering some unified arts programming within the course of that online program. And Cheryl McDonough, our social worker at Brownstone, has joined that program this year to offer our students some social emotional learning activities to complete over the summer, largely as a means of kind of reinculturating them to what's a hopeful return to normal school next year. At grades 7-12, a little bit different model than in years past. We have what we're calling mini immersive experiences. So we've hired 6 teachers to staff 6 grades. All of these teachers are current Portland teachers within our middle and high school, and they are developing kind of week-long, almost like mini project-based learning experiences for kids on really, really high interest, high engaging topics. So I was looking at some of the pitches they're kind of putting together today that we'll be making available to kids by the end of the year. Michelle Stotler, history teacher at the high school, has a really cool one where she's doing Hollywood versus history. So students get to watch a movie of their own choosing that's based maybe in part on true events, and then actually get to do some historical research and compare it to the true events and understand how Hollywood tends to maybe bend or twist the truth or events to satisfy a cinematic audience, and they get to draw some conclusions about that. So just an example of a really cool thing we're doing for our secondary students to drum up interest around summer learning. For our Valley View and Gildersleeve students entering grades K through 4, Jessica Bruin and Ryan Wallstrom have put together a literacy intervention program that's going to offer over 6 weeks, over the month of July rather, literacy intervention to targeted groups of students 90 minutes per day. There's 2 groups. One comes in for 90 minutes, goes home, and then the second comes in for the second 90 minutes of the day, which we feel is age appropriate for students of those grade levels. And we're currently looking around enrollments of 10 to 15 students per grade level, which for this type of targeted in-person literacy intervention is right in the sweet spot. And we're thrilled to say that this program is fully staffed by current Valley View and Gildersleeve teachers. Our Brownstone in Portland Middle School model has students coming in for in-person literacy and math intervention, 1 50-minute session for each subject area, followed by an hour of enrichment programming, high interest, fun, lesser academic, more socially interactive based instruction. For the month of July, that's taking place on our secondary campus. We've got a decent amount of staffing, enough to accommodate what again is looking at to be about 10 to 15 students per grade level. And those were intentionally selected students based on assessment data and a need for additional intervention. So we're really happy with how that program is taking shape. And then finally at the high school, Principal Lawson and I have been working to give shape to a credit recovery program. So given some of the disruptions to learning this year and the challenges of the pandemic, we were anticipating having more students than typical not pass their courses, so an increased need for credit recovery. Additionally, we weren't sure until very recently whether or not Middletown would be accepting Portland students for tuition-based credit recovery as they have in years past. It turns out they are accepting Portland students, but at cost. We are planning at the high school to offer several courses free of charge to Portland students utilizing federal funds for purposes of credit recovery. We're currently scheduled to run Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Biology. We're also looking at an additional 2 history offerings, possibly geometry and possibly integrated physical science. That is a credit recovery model. So it's 3 hours a day of strict coursework for the month of July. And the number of hours that a student completes for credit recovery within Portland within our free program actually exceeds the number of hours that they would complete if they went across the bridge to Middletown and completed a credit recovery program there. It's a little bit of a fluid situation because kids are working right till the end and working to not fail their courses. So that's our hope, is that they pass during the school year and don't end up in credit recovery. But for those students that need credit recovery, we're excited to be able to offer them that safety net. The final update, well, 2 more, my penultimate one. I wanted to give a little bit of an update on our equity work. So we just had our 4th and final meeting of our Equity and Inclusion Coalition this year. And I am chomping at the bit to share with the board some of the work that we've been doing, and it's coming. That work has been the development of an equity definition, core beliefs around equity, and a stance around advancing equity in Portland. The coalition is developing this language in draft form, and then we will very shortly be road testing it with focus groups, including the Board of Education, school administration, teachers, students, parents, community members for feedback. This is really, really important. Anything we do around equity and inclusion, we want to make sure is coherent and is anchored in solidified, crystallized, coherent district language. Otherwise, we end up taking a haphazard approach to equity and inclusion. And, you can make the argument that anything you're doing for equity and inclusion is a good thing, and I don't want to argue against that. But we know, given some of the sharp criticism and misplaced understandings around this work, the more coherent we can be around a shared language, understanding, and vision, the better our work together will be. I want to quickly touch upon, excuse me, unfortunately, what we've all been reading, which is a national debate and really a national pushback, and very concerning around things like critical race theory, the 1619 Project, the teaching of white privilege. And so for the public listening in and members of the board, you may be wondering, where does Portland stand on this? Are we teaching critical race theory? Have we adopted the 1619 Project? First and foremost, we continue to follow the Connecticut State Legislature. So at this time, we're very fortunate to live in a state where we have a progressive state legislature that understands the importance of equity and inclusion, not as political matters, but as civic responsibility. And that it's part and parcel of making our state, our world, our students, our citizens better people. You only have to look as far as our state legislature recently signing into law a bill requiring districts to offer a Black and Latinx studies course. And that's been groundbreaking legislation that really sets Connecticut apart from many other states in our union. That curriculum is yet to be fully released by the state of Connecticut, but we are on track to offer that course within Portland High School in the 22-23 school year. Certain districts were invited to participate in a pilot of that course in the upcoming year. We thought long and hard about it. It immediately came down to a program of studies and staffing issue. So while we're not offering that course next year, we're preparing ourselves readily to be able to offer it the following year. In the meantime, we have a tremendous organization in the state of Connecticut, the Connecticut State Social Studies Committee. And they've developed a very robust framework for the teaching of history and social studies, in which they prioritize inquiry and the teaching of bias and the coverage of history through multiple perspectives. That has defined our curriculum for several years running and will continue to do so. So if questions come up, if we're adopting specific pedagogies to the teaching of history or specific documents like the 1619 Project, we would counter by saying, we present history to our students as a subject or a context that is informed by multiple perspectives and by the stories of many individuals who lived and experienced those events. And in our teaching of history, we try to give coverage to as many perspectives as possible. And in doing so, we teach our students to think critically, to understand fact from fiction, and to both respect and value the lived experiences of others. And again, we are committed to working with the state to advance equity and inclusion within our curriculum, including through culturally responsive teaching practices. I just want to finally end, before I open up for any questions, barring anything unforeseen at this point, and I can hear Tim probably saying, thank God. This will be my last presentation to the board for the 2021 school year. So more than anything, I want to just say thank you. It's been an incredible experience coming to Portland, being in Portland this year, working under the leadership of Dr. Britton and with the support and expertise of my colleagues, of our dedicated teachers, working for our incredible students and families. I'm very, very thankful, board members, for your support, for your participation on our committees, for your interest in what we're doing, your questioning, the positive pressure you put on us to do better. You've done things this year like support an extensive device replenishment program through our Chromebook leasing, which was not easy to do. I thank you for that. Now that the budget's passed, we're really excited to get that replenished technology in the hands of our students, for supporting and advancing our equity work within Portland Public Schools. And as recently as last week, for taking such a strong and collective and unified stance on matters of equity and inclusion. It really, really matters. It's palpable. It's felt. I certainly appreciate it. And last but not least, for being such a captive audience during my presentations. I really, really appreciate it. And with that said, thank you again. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Sarah? No? Thank you for your hard work this year.
Thank you.
New business. Bylaw. Board of Education bylaw 9321. Time, place, and notification of meetings. It's our first reading.
So you want me to take this one, or I guess the policy committee took this up. Do you want me to explain it, or do you guys want to?
Well, we worked very hard on this. It was confusing because we had a pandemic policy, which we adopted in October. And the pandemic policy went away when the governor's executive order went away on May 19th. And because we love having our audience on Zoom, we wanted to continue to do that, but we also recognize that some of our board members may need to be removed as well because of illness or other reasons. So we crafted a policy based on electronic participation of members who choose to stay home because of illness or whatever, and can participate on Zoom, while we recommend in-person meetings. And we'd love to have everybody here. We know that sometimes that's not possible. This policy recognizes that and gives us the authority to meet as we are tonight. I think it's a good policy. I think it's so good that we probably can bypass the second reading and pass it tonight so that we are officially bylawed to do this on a regular basis in this wonderful new setting.
And then the only other thing I would add to that, but this policy is specifically about the board's participation. So if you approve this policy, we could see you on this TV as early as our next meeting in 2 weeks, right? When we talked about the bylaws with respect to administrators like Eric or audience of citizens, the bylaws are silent on the means by which the audience or administrators presenting to the board can participate. So we didn't feel like we needed to really do anything. We can just allow this to happen and entertain Eric or Dawn or Kate or anybody else, and still have audience of citizens and allow for the more robust participation from the community I think that we've had through the pandemic. And we don't need to make any other changes to the bylaws. So this is just specific to you all, and that here it is, right? I mean, we just had Eric participate. I think it's there, I mean, whether he's here in person or there on the screen, and I can see us if any of you were feeling under the weather or otherwise home with your kids because your spouse had to work or whatever. There you are. I mean, you're able to hear and see and participate in the same way. I think this what we've learned from the pandemic is we can and should capitalize on the technology.
Yep, there are some benefits to the pandemic. Not many, but this might be one of them.
Right.
I would agree. I can say just, from being on the board the number of years that I have, the participation by this means is much greater than it would usually be at a meeting at 7 p.m. in the library up at the high school. And that's really what we want. We want community participation, and we want to hear from people, and we want people to attend. And know what we're doing and all the great things that are happening in the school. So I agree. I'm glad we don't need to do anything in terms of that. But I think this also is helpful to the board
Mhm.
in terms of members, like you said, who may not be able to be present in person for a meeting. So I think it's good.
My only thing, and I think it's good too, I think it's something that we can support, I can support. But I do, when I talked about this in the meeting that we had, is there's under the heading electronic participation in board meetings, 1, 2, 3, the last sentence of the third paragraph, it creates a different situation for members who participate electronically. If you come in late to the meeting, here, what this bylaw contemplates is that you would just simply not be allowed to participate in any discussion on a topic that had already started. Yet, if you had walked into the meeting late and live, there's no prohibition on that. And I don't see the reason to have that prohibition for that. Certainly if you're, when we talked about it, there was a lot of back and forth. Well, if you don't really know what's being talked about, if you haven't been there for the discussion, but there's hardly anything we talk about that we are coming upon brand new, fresh, that we've never discussed before. And so that's my concern. I don't care for that one sentence in there.
Well, I think that the thinking may be, if you're physically here, we see you. If your name is showing up on the screen, we don't really know if you're there or not. And then just to pop in to vote.
Oh, no, I think that line is correct. You can't just show up and vote. This is just saying, this specifically, it says, if you join the meeting after an item of business has been opened, that you cannot participate until the next business item. It's not saying, it's clear, you can't just be blank on the screen
Well,
and
I
then
think it's,
show up to
I
cast
think
the
it
vote.
kind of just addresses the issue in the sentence before that. You can't just simply vote electronically. You have to be connected with the meeting throughout the discussion of business. So if you walk in or you connect in the middle of a discussion, you haven't heard it all, right? And you may be right. Maybe there are most things that, we've discussed at different points in time. But I mean, I think that's how I read that anyway. That you read the paragraph as a whole.
I actually want to interject. I believe Robert's Rules of Order govern people coming into meetings and not having participated when the item on the agenda was first opened. And one of the benefits of making a motion and seconding it to have a debate, we do agree a lot of the time, and a lot of us have, not been, it has never been contentious. We've always been able to have that discussion. But I believe that, but Robert's Rules of Order does govern that you must be present for the entire motion being opened and the discussion being made so that you can vote according and build a consensus. Sometimes we need to build consensus, and we may have an idea coming into a meeting that we haven't heard all of the thoughts of all the people. So Robert's Rules of Order does govern.
Can you cite where that, because I did research
did look it
myself
up,
and I can't.
Actually, it was one of the frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
We had that conversation.
Because I did some research and found that wasn't the case. So if you have something that definitively
So
says
most of
that.
the language that we are using is coming right directly from Robert's Rules of Order. I didn't bookmark it. I'm sorry that I didn't.
Tornado? Let's see. Oh, Amber Alert. It's terrifying.
Yeah, well, anyway, that's just my one concern. I think, if we didn't have the same thing, if I walked in to the meeting late, would I also be prohibited from participating in the discussion? Somehow it just seems that we're creating a second tier here that,
I don't think so.
I don't understand why we wouldn't be.
Well, I think if you come in late, you probably would recuse yourself because you haven't heard, you didn't come in when the item was open for discussion.
And
Well,
by
why wouldn't we
open,
make the same
by
assumption here if
open-
you come into the meeting late?
by open, you mean a motion made, correct?
A motion would.
Yeah, someone makes a
yeah, because
motion.
You would have to be voting on something, right? It would be a motion.
So you're not just suggesting that because we've been discussing something that.
Like if
you
Tim
wouldn't
just
be able to
walked in right
participate.
now.
Right, if
He wouldn't be limited from joining the discussion. It would only
Right.
be if there was an open
It's only if
motion
there's an open
on the
motion.
table.
I'm glad you clarified.
Well, I
that.
don't know, open item of business, that's not the same as a motion. An open item of business is an open item of business, it's not a motion. I don't know, I just think that's very vague, and
What
to
do
me, it means if you're discussing the budget, and I walk in 5 minutes after the discussion on the budget started, yet no motion has been made. This says I cannot participate in that discussion unless I was there when the superintendent opened up that item of business on the agenda. So you would be there for the whole meeting and you'd be prohibited from participating, which I think is not appropriate.
I believe it's regarding motions made.
But that's not what it says.
Well, I think
Well, then,
it's.
So if
a
we want to change the
semantic
language and
issue.
say if a motion has been made, I wouldn't have a problem with a motion. This is an active motion, you walk in the middle of it.
Well, then would you accept that if a board member electronically joins the meeting after a motion has been made and seconded?
You just say while a motion is actively being considered, or however you want to say it, that's fine. I'd look at
Okay,
that.
that we would put that language in, that it would be, if there was a motion that was being debated, that we would, that a remote, a late remote entry would not allow you to.
Well,
participate.
why only late remote? Why not late coming in the room?
I think it applies equally.
Yeah,
It
so
does-
why
it
don't we
does
say
apply.
that?
Mhm.
If there's a motion and you walk in, yeah, I think that would be applicable to the same thing. I
Yeah.
believe Robert's Rules of Order, I did find.
No, that is in
There
Robert's
is-
Rules of Order, yes, I did find that in there.
Mhm.
Because it's different with a motion versus the discussion of a business item.
Well, if Charles is in the middle of his superintendent's report and you sneak in and sit down, there's nothing to vote on, but.
Right, but I wouldn't be allowed to ask a question because I can't participate while that item of business is still being discussed.
Technically.
I'm being technical. so.
Okay, we call it.
So
that.
Tim, let me ask you this question, just because I'm curious about this. Would you're comfortable with that language as long as it says electronically or in person?
Well, I would be more comfortable with it, but I would really be comfortable with it if it included motion
I got
rather
you.
than
Okay,
business, because business is a different matter.
I got you.
And this is language suggested by Cabe, and
Right.
the way Sharon is interpreting it to mean motion, but maybe there's a way for us to be more clear
Yeah,
with that language.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's always good to be.
Well, why don't we
I
take it back to
see.
policy
So
and
take it back,
then bring it back for second reading?
and I'll
Um,
find the notation. in
yeah,
Robert's Rules
It
of
it
Order.
just means that I think that our next meeting in June, we're all in person
We have
again,
to be in
you know,
person, yeah.
until we get this passed and can start with the Zoom, as long as everybody sort of
Everybody else.
understands where, you know, because I don't think we need a special meeting. I think,
No, we don't.
No, I think we should
no.
consider this at our
no.
next meeting. And I mean, frankly, this is meant to be used, and I think the language is clear about this. This is meant to be used as the exception, not the rule. This is so that if folks have a real emergency, they're recovering from surgery, they've got a sick child, they can't
Right.
physically be present, excuse me. But that's why this exists. It's not meant to be I didn't feel like coming in.
Exactly, yeah.
I like it. So we'll bring it back to policy and then have a second
We'll
reading.
look for some language that is suitable. And Tim, if you want to suggest something that would,
I mean, I would be
I'll find
happy
Robert's
with just
Rules of
those
Order
two
and then we'll-
things.
Yeah.
A board member, coming in electronically or in person after a motion has been made, will not participate until the next business item is open. Because once you complete the motion and you vote, then you move on to the next business item.
Right.
So those are the only two things. I think if we wanted to make those changes tonight, we could do that.
Why don't we?
I'd be fine
all
with
right.
that.
So what do you want to say, Tim?
Yeah, we should.
Well, I'm just suggesting that we say if a board member electronically or in person joins the meeting after a motion or while an active motion is on the table or during a motion.
After a motion on an item of business has been made and seconded,
Yeah,
Right, motion.
So,
instead of opened, make it has been made and
that member,
after a motion as opposed to item,
right.
Has been made and seconded.
the remotely located or late arriving member shall not participate until the next
business.
item of business is
Business is open.
open.
Yeah.
What if instead of modifying to say electronically and in person, what if we just erase the word electronically? If a board member joins the meeting after a motion. blah, blah,
That's
blah.
even better.
It's, it's economy of words. I love it.
It's a rarity.
Never ask for words.
Yes,
Not go with words.
No, I appreciate you
get on-
guys, working with me on that one.
Did you get it?
I'll do
You
that.
got
If
it?
a board
Somebody
member
read it for us.
joins, just take out
So if a board
electronically.
member
Here it is.
joins the meeting after a motion has
Well,
been
well, let
made
me,
and
so,
seconded.
well, hold on. So if a board member electronically or in person,
No,
Take
no,
out
we're
So
taking
we
out
just
both.
decided
okay,
to,
We're
there
gonna
we
take
go.
out both of those.
Love it.
Say if a
So-
board member joins.
Yep.
The meeting after a motion has been made and seconded,
Okay, hold on, I'm gonna
Then-
type on. Motion has been made and seconded,
the
comma,
member shall not participate until the next item of business is open.
member. Yeah, so I could just delete that whole part there.
I think that it's just much more specific.
That's fine with me.
All right, can I read it back to you one more time?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I'll take it from the whole paragraph here. The board may allow members to participate in meetings by telephone or other electronic means. Board members may not simply vote electronically, but must be connected with the meeting throughout the discussion of business. If a board member joins the meeting after a motion has been made and seconded, comma, the member shall not participate until the next item of business is open.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's clear.
I like that.
Yep.
All right, so I'll make a motion that 9321, the bylaws of the board, time, place, and notification of meetings be passed tonight as amended with the statement in paragraph 3.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Good. Good. Any further discussion? You're all been here. You can all talk. No? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Here's your book back.
Thank you.
I didn't find it either.
I did find it. I'll go back and read the book again.
Okay. Next is the budget issue.
Right, so let me just give a little explanation as much as it's needed here. So last meeting, you all, and much appreciated, approved the second grade teacher. What we're trying to do now is make sure the ledger balances. So Stephanie and I, darn it all, are gonna make sure that July 1, every nickel is in the right line item that we need it to be in, so that we can start with a zero, no deficit budget. And then what that'll enable us to do is that every month when we give you that report, that you can see the percent drawdown, the lines are accurate. So to do that, there needs to be some rearranging of the funds to get them into the right lines, so that we start with what we're actually budgeting for the year. That
Sounds
makes sense?
good. Yep.
All right.
Any questions? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'm happy to make the motion. I think I have the language here. Sure. So I'll make a motion to recommend to the full board the following change to the fiscal year 2022 BOE budget as follows. A reduction in 61011 general supplies by $50,000. A reduction in 64041 textbooks by $5,000. And 64045 workbooks by $5,000. Due to the need of a grade 2 teaching position, 11011 certified salaries is increased by $60,000. All other objects remain the same as voted on by the BOE on May 4th, 2021.
I'll second that.
Tim? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Okay,
Sure
unanimous.
Nancy gets that.
Wonderful. Okay. We have no old business apparently.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll move on to committee reports. Curriculum,
Nothing to report?
policy. You're busy.
Obviously, we've been busy and we're going to continue to be busy.
Mhm.
No meeting schedule.
Okay, personnel, we have a couple meetings coming up. Going to be starting some negotiations for contracts. And building and grounds, I think we have a change to make in our subcommittee members. Chris, did you want to?
Yeah, I just, since I'm not planning on running again in November, and I think that committee needs somebody who's has a little more investment in the future of the buildings. I think it would be good to have someone else step in who's gonna, have a little more skin in the game, as it were. So I'm happy to step down from that. I mean, I'm excited. I enjoyed the opportunity, but I think it'd be good for
Right.
somebody who's gonna be with us for a little longer than I am
Mhm.
on the board.
Well, I appreciate that, and certainly thank you for the work that you've done. It's not that's a pretty time-consuming committee, and I know Lauren Christensen, you've expressed an interest in getting more involved, so we'll put you in and great for this place.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Good. We did have a meeting, an update with Carl and Stephanie, Charles and Dave and I met. And basically, all the projects that we were talking about in the budget are on target to be completed either during summer vacation or before summer school begins. And there's nothing that's changed. And obviously, we had a lengthy discussion about the track again and came up with maybe some new ideas for funding and also some conversations that we need to have with the Board of Selectmen. So tomorrow night, we are meeting with the Board of Selectmen to start a resolution for an official building committee to look at the building schools and make some real inroads into what we're going to do for a strategic plan over the next 3, 5, 10 years. It's very, very exciting, and we hope that they'll both give us the vote of confidence that we need to do.
Yep, that'll be good, and thank you, Lauren, for taking on that
Yeah.
work.
A lot of work to do.
It will be a lot of work, and hopefully, Charles, we can connect
Yep.
Lauren with oh, good Lord.
Carl?
I'll send you some
Yeah, with
minutes.
Carl,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll update you. Yeah, we'll talk.
Get you some of the documentation. That's also a good time to remind everybody about our special meeting tomorrow night. I think we need to check with the Board of Selectmen to see if we're going to be here in person, or perhaps we'll be the ones participating by Zoom. I don't know
Yeah.
if that discussion's been had or not. I don't know how we would all fit in here in a way
we could
where
be in the
we could be seen, to participate, but we'll figure that out and see where it goes.
I'd like to be here in person tomorrow, Dave. I mean, the committee members should be here in person
I'll
with
be
you.
there.
Because that
We'll
obviously,
figure it out.
All right.
It'll be a project for Dave.
Yeah.
tomorrow, but We'll have to arrange the table.
Yep, that is a good idea. If the subcommittee members should be here in person.
He's walking in right now, so I'll make sure. I grab
Okay,
him
well,
before we
maybe
go.
we'll talk about that after the meeting.
Trouble now.
I do that.
Okay, Conservation and Renewable Task Force,
No report.
correct liaison.
they had their meeting, their annual meeting, and it was very informative. There was a lot of, annual business kind of updates. There is a video which I would like the board to see at some point that talks about what CREC is and what it does and the schools, the 29 schools that they manage, and just kind of gives people a good idea, because I went into it blind. I mean, I kind of knew what CREC was, but I didn't know all that CREC did, and I'm still learning. So I'd like the Board of Ed to see that so that you can all be informed. It's important for us to participate in this organization.
Board of Selectmen,
Nothing significant other than they spent a lot of time talking about a proposed solar farm at the transfer station.
Mhm.
So it sounds like a very interesting project that they're gonna go for, but they gotta get accepted.
Is
right?
that tomorrow night that they're gonna vote on that? Is that a town meeting after we?
I don't know.
I have looked at the
I think
agenda.
it is.
That's the revised energy numbers.
Is that the regot? Yeah, I think that has to do with the solar farm or
Yeah.
the recycling center. Yeah.
Okay, Task Force on Solidarity,
The next meeting is Tuesday, June 8th. So I'll be participating in that.
okay, Equity and Inclusion Coalition. We heard from Eric
We
tonight.
were on it today.
Into that.
And it was the final of the 4 sessions, and
Okay.
it was great work. It was good. It was really, we working with the teachers and some administrators and family members, students, and
Good.
it was really very enlightening. It was everybody over the 4 sessions. You could, at least for me, I could tell it reached a real comfort level talking about because it's not comfortable at first to talk,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
kind of tiptoeing around, and there was it really generated some good discussion.
Great. That's good.
We have a really, really impressive group of students in there.
Yeah.
Very, very, very bright kids. They're awesome. They're really great to work with.
Great. Any comments from the audience of citizens? No? Okay. Any member comments?
I have a question for the equity team over here. June 19th, Juneteenth, I know that the task force is going to be doing something. Is the Board of Ed or the school is going to be participating in that event?
School's
I
gonna be
haven't
out by then, I think.
The school will be out, but I know it's a kind of an important date. And I was hoping that maybe some of the kids would, some of the students, some of our students might participate.
I'll talk about it with the group on the 8th.
On the 8th, okay.
See
Oh, that'd be.
what they have. And I'm sure they must have some plans. in there.
I think.
Yeah, I
know the
thought I
library
saw
is
that.
gonna-
Yeah, there
In the
was some,
minutes.
yeah, I know there
Yeah,
are some plans, but I think,
Wasn't there some outreach going on from the Social Justice Coalition to high school kids?
well, that was, yeah, they wanted to have another forum where
Right.
they would bring
Okay.
students together to talk about the issue. The one they had was nice, but it was very small.
It's not,
It was a
right.
small group, but
Yeah.
they accomplished a lot, and they had some good discussion, but they really wanted to cast a wider net.
The other comment that I want to make is that Sharon and Charles were the targets of some really hateful stuff. And I'm really sorry. It broke my heart to see that in our town where we have had people working so hard all year to make sure the kids were safe and make sure that staff was safe. And for someone unbeknownst to town members, board members, who wanted to do that hateful thing and target two people who have worked so hard, really was very hurtful and hateful. And I want to say that the other night, the class night celebration certainly overshadowed the ugliness of that event on the lawn at Brownstone School. The students, the dedication to teachers, the success that all of our students were experiencing is incredible to me, in spite of COVID. You know, we may have lost something, but I think we've gained a lot. And the last class night was really a celebration, a magnificent celebration of all of the hard work of students and teachers in this district and administrators in Charles. So thank you, and let's hope this never happens again.
Yes. I agree with that. Any other comments?
I had just one quick question that I mean, I would second everything Meg just said, and thank you for saying it so eloquently. But my unrelated, I'm wondering, we discussed in the past, setting some time aside over the summer for some board kind of continuing education efforts around equity work and implicit bias. And I'm wondering if at some point we want to set a date for that.
Yeah, so Eric and I are going to get back to you on that. We're having conversations with the Connecticut Center for School Change and two facilitators who have been working with our leadership team and are outstanding, facilitate some great conversations. We're going to try to invite them in to help to run a couple of our summer retreats, but it's about figuring out what their availability is and setting that agenda. So we're working on it. Stay tuned. Eric and I will be back shortly with some proposed dates that hopefully will work for everybody.
Perfect. Thank
Bravo.
you, Charles.
Yep, great.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think you're really going to enjoy these folks from the Center for School Change. They're spot on.
Something to look forward to. Any other comments? No? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion, Meg Scata.
Gata. Lauren. Laurel.
Laurel.
Laurel, LS.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Hey, Dave, how are we going to fit here tomorrow?
That's the question.